Spencer, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed by us. We're really, really excited to have you here. I'm just going to jump right in. You are a man with so many specialties that I don't know where to begin, from property tech to ag tech to wealth management. You've been named one of the top 100 most influential people in Dubai. So I think that's a great place to start. How did you get such a prestigious title and what led up to it?
I'm always a little bit uncomfortable with being given titles as to what I am and what I was. I think I'm just a guy that's got my head down and my tail up and trying to do what I can to provide for my family and build a secure future and focus on how I can use that knowledge and experience to help other causes as well.
So how did you sort of get into being named one of the 100 most influential people in Dubai? Tell me kind of how that happened.
Well, I think that I started in 2016 pushing out content on social media, trying to bring value to people. And I very much took the Gary Vaynerchuk approach of, in his book, he writes jab, 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 right hook, which is give, give, give before you look to receive. And by producing content that was relevant to people here, that helped them understand how they could either grow their business or how they could be more effective within their business, it got attention and eyeballs where it hadn't before. And on top of that, then I had a podcast as well, and I was able to engage some well-known, let's call them, I don't like the word celebrities, but well-known business people, respected business people here in the US and the UK. And that drew further attention to me, which means I have the ability to be able to shape conversations, but also learn from those wonderful people that I've had the good fortune to meet and interview, and be able to share their wisdom. By being able to do that, that's enabled other people again to see me as somebody that's influential. I find it hard to think I am, but other people clearly do.
Yeah, well, I mean, that leads right into your podcast. You're the host of the Spencer Lodge podcast. It's one of the most listened to podcasts in the region. What inspired you to start a podcast? It's been around for a while, and what's the experience been like? I imagine it's fascinating to learn from so many different kinds of people and to constantly be talking to new people.
So I started it 4 years ago. We've done 260 episodes now, I think. Wow. One episode comes out every week. It started off in the kind of personal development space, and people like Tony Robbins were, I was fortunate to get them to come onto the show, which meant I could leverage those celebrity type names and learn from them. And when you learn from really wise people, it's really valuable for yourself. But the podcast started to turn into inspiring stories from people that had been through unimaginable difficulties and came out kind of with a positive mindset, and came out, after all they've been through, you would absolutely forgive them. If they wanted to wave the white flag and surrender to life, you'd forgive them because of what they've been through. But they inspired me, to hear those stories of those people. I would come off of an episode going, oh my God, that was just fascinating. But what it did as well is it humbled me. And it taught me that it doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter what you've been through, you can come out of the other side, and there is hope and there is faith. If you apply that, then your life can look better than it might have done before.
Yeah, no, I feel very similarly about the interviews that we do. Even, I mean, you get that sort of feeling of connecting with another person, that you see them on the other side of a social media screen, and there's all this hype, but then you connect with the real person, and it's really valuable for just empowering other people. And speaking of empowering, you have Make It Happen, which is an e-learning platform, and it has maybe the most empowering title of anything I've ever come across. So can you give us a little bit of insight into what inspired you to start Make It Happen? Give us a little bit of an example of what it does, maybe some success stories.
everyone in business has a specialist area. Some people are finance, some people are ops. I was a sales guy. That's what I'm good at. That's what I learned when I was very young. But I didn't like that salespeople were not respected in the way they should be. And I used to be offended by people that would look down their nose at me when they heard I was a salesperson. And so a good example of that was one night when I was around about 20 years old. I was working in London and I went to a bar on a Friday night with 3 of my colleagues, which is what we would do, you know, after work, go for a couple of glasses of wine and end the week. And I saw this girl, and she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen in my life. She had dark brown hair and a kind of like short bob style hair, big brown eyes, and she was just my idea of perfect. And I was really stuck on her while I was in the bar, thinking, oh my goodness, she would never talk to me, so don't even go and bother introducing yourself. And a couple of hours later, after my friends convincing me that maybe I should, I wandered over, introduced myself, and she said to me, what took you so long? I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, you've been looking at me for the last 3 hours, and so why didn't you just come up earlier and say hi? I would have gladly had a conversation with you. And so that broke the ice a little bit, and I asked her about what she did for a living, and she worked for an architectural firm, and a bit about her career and her family, and got to know her a bit. And after 20 minutes or so of that, she said to me, what do you do? I said, I'm a salesperson. And she looked at me and she went, oh, salesperson. She goes, that's disappointing. I was like, well, what were you expecting? She said, I don't know, an investment banker, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, somebody, you know, somebody, a pilot, I don't know. And in that moment, I was obviously internally deeply offended. And I said to her, look, you work for an architectural firm. Does your company have clients? And she said, well, of course they do. I said, and those clients that your company has, is there people within your organization it's their responsibility to go and find those clients? And she was like, yes, of course. And I'm like, so what would happen if those people didn't find those clients? And she was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, there'd be no revenue coming into the business. And if there's no revenue coming into the business, then there's no job for you. And so the people that bring the business and the clients to your company are the people that help sustain the business and make sure that you get paid. In whatever title you might want to give them, they are salespeople. And if you've got no sales, you've got no business. So maybe you might want to think about it differently when you look at salespeople. And also, let's add to that equation. Most of them have to deal with rejection on a daily basis. They have to face rejection from people saying no to them or let me think about it. They also have families. They have roofs to put over their family's head. They have schools they have to pay for, car installments they have to pay for. And they're dealing with these highs and lows, and generally they're only paid on their performance. So they don't have big salaries. They have small salaries and bonuses or commission structures. So imagine going through the highs and lows that they do, having to get results to make sure that they can pay their bills. And then someone like you looking down the end of your nose at them, thinking that they're not worthy. And I think in that moment, she stopped and thought, and maybe it changed the way that she thought about salespeople. But for me, in that moment, it made me go, I never, ever want to see salespeople disrespected again. I want salespeople to be respected, admired, and realize that they're the backbone of every business, because a business without revenue is not a business. And that really was kind of the launch pad of me thinking, how can I get respect for salespeople? Now, the only way I knew how to do that was for salespeople to be really good professional salespeople. Now, there's lots of people that are in sales that aren't very good, like there are in every industry. And so I built the e-learning platform so that people could learn how to be professional salespeople. They could learn all of the tools and the strategies to get the education they needed to take selling as a profession. And if you make it a profession and you teach people the skills, they'll be able to deliver more for their organizations and service and benefit their clients better. And so that's really where it came from, where it started. Now, it took me many years before I even thought of turning it into an e-learning platform. But once I did, I realized how many people really needed that education. And that's when that took off.
That's quite a story. I half expected you to say, and then I married her. But
we dated for 2 years. So we did date for a while, but we didn't end up together. But I was very young then, and who knows what would have happened had I had a different path.
yeah, no, I am struck. It was one of the questions I was going to ask you actually, where you were saying, salespeople face rejection every single day. And what are your strategies for dealing with rejection? How have you coped? Because I know that's one of the biggest things I think that young professionals face is the fear of rejection. And
look, I think that everybody wants a yes, whether that's to a job interview, whether that's to a sale, whatever it may be, we want a yes. But what we forget is that we need to earn the yes. We don't just get a yes just because you said so. And so I was taught when I first learned to sell, and some people will identify with this, I was taught to make cold calls. And my boss said to me on the first day, here's your script. Here's your objection handling document, your script there, so you can answer any questions. And so learn this. You've had some training on the products, and so now we'll need you to get on the phone. And I was, okay, that was cool, no problem with that. And he said, I want you to make 100 cold calls today, and I want you to get me 100 people to say no to you. I was like, okay. So I made the calls, got 100 people to say no, went to see him at the end of the day, and he gave me a high five. He said, great job, I'll see you tomorrow. And the next day I came in, he said, right, I need you to get another 100 no's for me. And I was like, okay. So I got on the phone, and there were a few people that were kind of interested, but I talked them out of it rather than talk them into it because I needed the no's. On the third day, he said to me, I want you to get me 99 no's and 1 yes. So go and get those no's. I need 99 no's. So get those first and then get me a yes afterwards. So what was happening? He was teaching me to understand that I needed rejection then to get acceptance. So I needed the no's before I could get a yes. And I needed to understand that I needed the no's. Not everyone's going to say yes, so go look out for the no's. You won't get a yes until you've got sufficient no's. So there was 99 no's and 1 yes. Well, a week later, he's gone through that process with me. And now he's like, well, what I want you to do is I'd like you to get 98 no's and 2 yeses. Well, if you think about it, 99 to 1 is out of 100. 98 to 2 is actually 1 in 50. So he changed the odds. And then the week later is like get 3 no's, so 3 yeses and 97 no's. And the following week it was get 4 yeses and 96 no's. And so slowly the no's were coming down and the yeses were becoming more, until we got to a point where he said 90 no's and 10 yeses. Well, 90 no's and 10 yeses is another equation, essentially is 1 in 10. So get 9 people to say no and 1 person to say yes. And so all this process was doing was teaching me I needed to get no's. Go find the no's, go look for them, search for the no's. Because he knew in business that no's were going to come whether you liked it or not. So why don't you embrace them? Why don't you pursue them so you don't fear them? And so when somebody would say no to me, and no was probably the politest thing they would say, they would usually use bad language attached to it. But when people said no, I was like, okay, great, no problem. I need that no anyway, because I need enough of these no's so I can get a yes. So it taught me how to understand that rejection was part of success. And so I was then never, ever impacted by rejection, because I knew I needed it to get the yes. And another example of that is my daughter. She left university last year. She applied for 5 jobs, but had 5 interviews. Nobody gave her the job. And so she was a bit flat and deflated and not happy. And she's like, yeah, Dad, I really wanted to work there. And, they didn't even offer me the job. And I was like, why would they? She's like, well, I said, do you know the skills you need, the professional skills you need to be a good interviewee, to be a good candidate? She's like, no. I said, okay, well, you've got to understand you need skills. But remember, you've only applied for 5 jobs. What we're going to do now for the next 4 weeks is we're going to apply for 30 jobs a day for the next 4 weeks. And she's like, how do we do that? And so I showed her the various job sites you could go to and stuff you could do, gave her a process to follow. And for those 4 weeks, she applied for 30 jobs a day. But that was 150 jobs a week. That was 600 jobs in 1 month. By applying for 600 jobs in 1 month, she then got a flurry of interview opportunities, of which she was then able to choose the job she wanted the most. But it required her to go and search for them, get the no's. So if you apply for 600 and 50 people give you an interview, essentially 550 have said no. But if you get 50 interviews in a month, then you'd have to be an idiot not to get a job out of one of those 50. And it's just a case of understanding that process and accepting that's what it is. And in sales, we've got to accept that rejection is part of success. And so pursue it so you don't fear it. And I think that's really what the difference is for me and in all of my life, whatever it may be. I don't care. If you say no to me, no problem. I'm not going to lose any sleep. Maybe my product isn't right for you. Maybe you're not in the right space to buy at the moment. Maybe you don't have a budget yet to do that. Okay, that time will change. That time will come. We'll bear it in mind and we'll keep in touch. But the reality is not everyone's going to say no, and it's not personal. It really isn't personal. So don't take it personally and don't be affected or impacted by it personally. And then you'll get past it and you'll see it's just a part of doing business.
I mean, there's a lot of insight there, a lot. And I think it's brilliant what your manager did to you to make you get all those no's. Essentially just training you to get it under your belt. Amazing. I'm keeping that in my back pocket. So you do a lot of philanthropy work also. I was reading that you have given a lot of money to helping children who are born with HIV and AIDS. You've donated, a lot of money to the cause. What, as a person who you wear a lot of different hats. You have so many different things on your plate. What inspired you to go in that direction also?
Some people pursue money so that they can buy things. So they pursue money so that they can buy handbags and shoes and cars and watches and clothes and things, just things. Well, as you get a bit older, you realize that they're not important. You realize that they don't really make you happy. And so me making money, what do? Stockpile it so I can have more? Well, some people like that, but there's only so much money you really need in life, like really need. And everyone has a different number. But for me, it's like, there are people out there that are way less fortunate than us. And I don't talk about philanthropy, and I try and hide it, in fairness. You're one of the first people that's asked me about that recently. But I just want to try and do something good. And I do it selfishly as much as I do it selflessly. So when you help children that have been trafficked, or you help children that are suffering from an irreparable disease, when you try and help those types of people, a couple of things happen. Number one, you're humbled. Number two, watching other people suffering makes you realize how lucky you are. And number three, when you help people that are less fortunate than yourselves, whatever that may be, it doesn't have to be with money, it can be with time and love and compassion and empathy. It makes you feel good. And I think that a lot of people don't get that. They might give a bit of money away to some, nondescript charity and feel that they're doing something good. When you go and spend time with people that suffer and you try and help them and you just try and love them and care for them and be a good human being, you get so much out of it. They obviously benefit as well, but you get so much out of it. And I think that most people are kind. I believe that most people are good, but they don't always know where they need to direct that. And I really do believe that if every one of us could just help truly from their heart, just help one person. If everyone just helped one person, our world would change in a matter of days. And that doesn't have to be the child that's been trafficked or the person that's been through HIV and AIDS at a young age. It could be your old lady that lives next door, that old lady that struggles a little bit going in and out of the house. She doesn't have many friends because she's old. Her family don't see her very often. And once a week you pop over, with a box of chocolates and you have a cup of tea with her. And you do that once a week, That's 2 hours of your life once a week that you go and do that for one of your neighbors. That will feel amazing. And she will never forget it. And so I just think that we just need to direct our time and our attention sometimes in those areas. And if we were all to do that, there's enough suffering in the world. I think we could solve most of world suffering in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were saying that it's a little bit selfish, I was thinking, the fundamental connection, I think, in your whole professional journey, in the philanthropy, everything is connecting with people. And, that's the selfish aspect of it. You feel good because you've connected with someone, you've done something meaningful, and it would make it happen. You're kind of doing something similar. And
it's one of the greatest and most underrated cures of depression. Okay, it really is. We say that exercise is really good for depression, and I completely agree. But I have a group of girls here in Dubai from Bangladesh that I support, and I go and see those girls as often as I can. Let's say it's once a week, roughly. Whenever I'm with those girls, I feel alive. I feel joyful. I feel appreciated. And it's like a shot in the arm of something good. And then the rest of the week, I'm on fire because of that. And so that's what it means to me. And I've suffered with depression. I nearly killed myself in 2012. I went through a very dark period myself. It's those types of experiences that are far more valuable and beneficial than any form of antidepressant a doctor may prescribe you.
Yeah, no, they say, that one of the best treatments for depression is volunteering at a soup kitchen. It's getting that connection and perspective. And
but what a great thing to do. Imagine that, go and volunteer at a soup kitchen, meet people that are struggling, meet people that have got challenges, meet people that are emotionally drained, meet people that you know what could be something. There's a guy in the UK, I forgot his name, he was on the podcast. He had a cafe in Edinburgh in Scotland, and his little cafe, just a little coffee shop, yeah? And he was looking for an employee, and there was always this homeless guy that was hanging around. And so he said to him, do you want to come and do some work for me? Anyway, the homeless guy came in, did some work, okay, gave him a full-time job. And he said to him, do you know anyone else? And they called another guy in, another homeless guy, got him off the streets and gave him a job. Well, he's opened a whole bunch of cafes and coffee shops across different parts of Scotland and England now. All employees were homeless. That guy, he's going to heaven no matter what, isn't he? That guy is going to heaven. He's just one of life's good people. And that's such a great example to all of us, of what you can do if you just take the time. And getting to meet people at a soup kitchen, it's just you get past, that person on the street, and you get into that real person that's been through some challenges that your compassion and empathy could help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that example because I think it also is, using it shows that you can use business also to make the world a better place, that you can position yourself in that way, which ties into your ag tech investment, which is SMARTKAS, which is aimed at solving world hunger through ag tech. That's, a bold mission, and one that we seriously need. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into that, what SMARTKAS does?
So a farmer has a field, it's 1 acre big. In the winter, he plows his field. In the spring, he will sow his crop. In the summer, it grows. In the end of the summer, he will harvest. That 1 acre of land has pesticides on it. It has GMO work done to it. It has all kinds of chemicals put on it. And it has soil. And that soil, all of the water that comes in drains through that soil. And so actually, it's not a very smart way of farming. Now, that's in a normal country where you can do that. Take a country not far from the Sahara, Somalia, Ethiopia, where they have very little rainfall. How do you farm? How do you solve food problems and hunger in those places if you can't farm the land because it's rock hard and you can't dig into it and fertilize it? So take that 1 acre and build a 1 acre big warehouse on top of that 1 acre. Hermetically seal it so it's airtight. And inside that warehouse, build 10 layers, shelving units, 10 high. So now instead of having 1 acre, you've now got 10 acres. Bring in the technology that you require to start vertical farming in there. By keeping it airtight, you keep the moisture inside. You use 95% less water. On top of that, no pesticides, no chemicals, no GMO, nothing's there apart from pure crops being grown. LED lighting and technology. And you now can grow 10 acres where you could grow 1. But not only that, you now can grow strawberries in 28 days. So now you've got 10 acres growing and you're harvesting 12 times a year as opposed to once a year. So that's what SMARTKAS do. They build this technology and these facilities, they design and build these facilities where they can produce these types of crops. Now, if you look at where they are right now, they provide in London and in Amsterdam, but the ambition is to solve the problem globally. And there are countries around the world that desperately need this. And it's not always the same crop. I mean, in the UK, we love strawberries, and so it's there. In Amsterdam, it's lettuce. In India, it may be rice. In Bahrain, it may be rice. In some countries where rice is in abundance, maybe there's another crop. In India, it could be chilies, for example. And so what SMARTKAS have done is they've looked at this problem and say, how can we solve the problem? And that's what got me excited about it. How do we solve a really big problem? And if we can solve it, genuinely can we solve it? Okay, what would the world look like if that problem's solved? Now, we know that there are 3 things that kids need, okay, absolutely essential. Clean water, they need nourishing, and they need educating. They're the 3 things they need. You'll get rid of most diseases if you can give kids clean water. And if you take Charity Water, Scott Harrison that set that charity up, $750 million raised, thousands of clean water operations been set up, done a phenomenal job. Right? How can we feed these kids? Rather than giving them just the basics, how can we get nutrients in them? How can we give them fruits, vegetables, stuff that's going to be valuable for them? And then on top of that, how can we educate them? What can we do to give education to everybody? And technology is allowing education to go into the far reaches of the world. With an internet connection, you can be educated, and lockdown proved that you could learn online. Take AI and what's going on in that space as well. Education is a possibility. And if we do that, we've got a fighting chance of the next generation coming through from developing countries, third world countries, struggling countries, where maybe corruption has overtaken the country and governments, and give these kids a chance of having a future. And if we can, then they're the people that are going to build solutions for the next generation to come. And so that's why it's exciting for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is extremely needed, and your excitement is contagious, because that I'm wondering how far out are we from, having these farms in India, Sudan, places where it's needed.
Well, look, the reality is this is a generation's work. So this is probably a 25-year project, and it won't reach everywhere. But when you can slowly prove to governments that this is a far more efficient way of farming, you can get the support. So the European Commission supports it very much. The Brazilian government donated a large number of hectares in Minas Gerais state for smart farming from SMARTKAS to be established. And if you can get the governments in all of the countries around the world behind it, by understanding the difference it will make, you can solve the problem. But I do believe, as much as you'll do everything you can, in the short term, it'll be step by step, and in the long term, hopefully it'll be country by continent, and then hopefully it really does tick the boxes everywhere it needs to be.
Yeah, no, that would be incredible, and I hope that it's sooner rather than later, because with climate change, we have quite a ways. We have to speed things up, I think. So you also are an investor. So you do a fair amount of investing, and one of the things that you do is property tech with asset.
Mm-hmm.
And could you I'm interested in how you move from one tech venture to another. So like from ag tech and property tech and all of these, what ties them together for you, and how did you get kind of your finger in all the pies?
I think I get sold an idea, or I buy into an idea, and I don't always buy into the financials. I buy into the solving of the problem. So Lena, who is the founder of Asset, smart lady, had some money, wanted to buy some property in Dubai off plan. Spoke to one real estate broker, he said one thing. Then she spoke to another one, he said another thing. Spoke to another one, he said another thing. And she's like, why are you all saying different things? I want to invest my money. I want to make the best investment. None of you are aligned in what I should be buying. Is that because you have your own interests first to consider? And so she said, how can I solve this problem? How can I stop having to rely on real estate brokers that have their own interests first, and design something that will enable me to get the best investment opportunity in the property sector that I can? And so that's where Asset was devised from. And it's a website where Anybody, anywhere can go onto the website, put their financial and information and requirements into the website, and the website will then push out the top 3 choices that it would make for that person to invest in that 1-bed apartment in downtown or wherever it may be in Dubai, that's in the best interest of the investor. So if you're in Pakistan or India or not in Dubai and you can't get to Dubai easy, but you want to buy Dubai real estate, how do you do it? You're going to get a hold of a real estate broker, you're going to respond to an advert, he's going to try and sell you the latest off-plan development that's taking place. Is it the best investment for you? Maybe, maybe not. And if it's not, when will you learn? Too late. Whereas this structure is enabling you to get completely impartial advice that's geared through AI and data to give you the best choice based around your requirements. I love that. I love that. It's just like, I want to be able to trust somebody with my money, but if I can't trust them with my money, then I need to find another way. And we all know that, look, everyone has an opinion. Those 3 real estate brokers might have thought it was the best investment for Lena to make, but it's an opinion. We need data-driven information. We believe in the data because the data doesn't tell any lies. It has no emotions, and it tells you the truth. Whether you like it or not, it does. So why not go with the data and make the best decisions based upon what the data is saying, rather than, a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed real estate broker that might have been in the job for 5 minutes.
Right. No, that's one of the things that technology is doing so well, is democratizing that kind of knowledge. Speaking of AI, I can't let you go without asking about AI. Where do you think this the trend is going? Are you anticipating leveraging it for Make It Happen, or any of your work? How do you see AI changing the landscape, especially for investors and
I think we're already using it. In all of the businesses that I'm involved in, we use AI, and every day I'm using AI myself. And whether that's the basics of ChatGPT, there's AI tools and technology coming out now for people to run investment portfolios. I come from the investment industry and have been in that for 30 years. And so it's like everything, we're scared of it when it first happens, aren't we? Oh my gosh, the internet's going to ruin everything. It's not like it was in my day, the mobile phone. I remember my dad getting a mobile phone in his car phone, and his journey to work and from work were his peace and quiet. He could listen to, his classical music, and he could just have his wind down time in that 1-hour drive, and nobody interrupted him, nobody spoke to him, and he was calm when he walked through the front door. And then they put this phone in his car, and he was up in arms. Oh my God, why are they doing it, ruining it? I don't get a single moment to myself. This phone's in the bloody car. But if you try and take my dad's phone away from him today, he'd have a few words to say. And I think that that's important to understand. We keep fighting stuff and then we compare it to the past. AI could be dangerous. It needs to be regulated, I believe. There needs to be structure around that. But there are going to be so many opportunities to use AI to develop your business. What will be sad is the people that don't get that and stay stuck in an industry where AI will take it over. You need to be looking at your business. So let's say lawyers. If you start as a lawyer in a law firm, you start at the bottom, and you do long hours, and you're doing lots of laborious contracty type stuff. You're not standing up in front of court and being, Danny Crane or whoever it may be, the bloke off of Suits, and standing there going, it's none of that happens in the beginning. You're a beginner. Well, if AI can do the beginner's work, and that job can be eliminated, then you need to be thinking to yourself, okay, but I can't get in at that level. Where can I get in? Or should I be thinking about something else? Or should I be working for the AI tech company that's able to create that type of legal structure and legal frameworks? So I think that you've really got to understand, it's like self-driving cars, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? It will happen. We will all be up in arms and we won't trust it for a while, but then it will happen, and then it will solve a problem, and it will make life much easier for everybody else. But right now, it's still a challenge. So everything AI, I think, is exciting. Some of AI, I think, is worrying. But even if I do think it's worrying, it's not going to stop its implementation.
Right. No, I think, it's one of those things, like you said, with regulation, it has to be controlled in a certain way, but it's going to happen whether we like it or not. Although I have to say,
It's already happening. Look at the AI companies. The stock prices have gone like this. Everyone's talking about chat GPT and other stuff like that. Before we go on to Google now, we're now going to Bing, because Bing's got the AI linked into the search there. So people are already using it. People are applying for jobs, getting standard documents, created. They're going into chat GPT saying, I'm applying to be an advertising executive. What would I say in my opening letter? It's all being done anyway. And I just think that it makes me smile, because when I receive an email that I think's been generated by AI, it makes me smile. I think, okay, the guy's just saved himself 15 minutes and put this together in 2 seconds, but had taken off if that's the way you've approached it.
It's funny how our attitudes differ in that based on industry, because I know that like in journalism, sometimes people have been quite angry to find out that their articles have been written by ChatGPT. And on this side, on the tech side, people are like, well, good for you for using AI. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about team building, because I read that in your career in wealth management, you took revenue from, with a team, you took your revenue from, £1 million a year to 45 million pounds a year. And just in 8 years, like that's huge. So, and you focus a lot on team building. I mean, from Make It Happen to this as well. So what is your kind of secret sauce for a good team? How do you build your teams?
Okay, so one of my core skills is I'm able to find good people. I'm very bad in many parts of business, but I'm able to find good people, and I'm a strong delegator. And so I like people I use a system called TMM, okay? Teach, monitor, measure, okay? So teach, monitor, measure. Teach somebody how to do something, monitor them doing it, measure the performance. And by using that process, I'm able then to get people through the steps to grow into leadership roles within our businesses. I think that a team has to be like a platoon in the military. It has to be like a squadron in the Air Force, a group of people where we're all in it together. We're us against the rest of the world. It's like this army that you create, a gang, whatever you want to call it. And when you create that type of environment and you get everybody to fight for each other, you create competition within there so that they can compete with each other, and you give them opportunities to grow. Magical things happen. But the only way that happens is if you have the right people in the teams. And so for me, I'm very careful to find the right people. And so, every business is a team. Every business is a group of people. Whatever way you want to say it, every business is a group of people that have different functions within that group. Now, if you come into the UAE and you see these businesses that are multicultural employers, you'll find the Russians go for lunch together, the Indians go for lunch together, the Pakistanis go for lunch together, the Filipinos go for lunch together, and the British go for lunch together. And it's like, to me, that doesn't work. You've got to have the right culture within that group of people. So understanding that if I'm going to employ multicultural people, I'm going to want to try and make them culturally aligned within the group. But also, I really believe in a culture of success. A lot of teams grow very quickly, and you'll know as well as I do. You have a group of people, let's say there's 4 of you, and one is really negative. Well, it poisons the other people. It brings negativity into their thought process and thinking too. So for me, it's trying to create a culture of success. So bringing people into a team by starting off with a very small group that are successful. Then you can bring one person into that group. If that person wants to be successful, they'll rise. If they're negative, then we can eliminate them from the team very quickly, and you can bring somebody else in. And slowly, you'll grow that team one at a time until you get to approximately 10 members. Once you've got 10 members in the team, you're fortunate enough to be able to then bring in 2 people at a time, because the positivity and the culture of success of that 10 people won't be impacted by 2 people if 1 or 2 of them are negative. So that's what you then do. Once you get up to 20, 30, 40 people in the team, maybe you can start with slightly larger numbers from 2 to 3 to 4 people being recruited. So I really believe the culture of success is critical. I've seen lots of sales teams, lots of businesses fail over the years where they can't get their teams to perform. And that's because there's just too much negativity. There's too much can't do as opposed to too much can do. You want people to be winners. And so you need to breed that into them if they're coming into a group. And that success is, we all measure other people's success. You know, if you're in a group and you see somebody doing really well, you're going to say one of two things. If you're the negative person, you're going to say, he must be doing something dodgy. I want to know what he's up to because it can't be legitimate or ethical. And then you've got the can-do people, the positive people are like, he's doing really well. I want to emulate that. What have I got to do? If he can do it, I can do it. So if he can do it, I can do it. Right. What have I got to learn? What have I got to implement? I'm going to follow him. I'm going to copy him. I'm going to mimic him so that I can be as good as him. And that's essentially what you want in those groups of people. And that's why I care about teams, but I also care about making sure teams have fun. All right. It's really important that we come away from the work environment and we have fun. Now, in England, that would be going to the pub on a Friday night for a beer or once a month for a beer. In this part of the world, we've had to be creative with our team building structures. So once a quarter, we would take everybody away and put them under an enormous amount of pressure to achieve something that was totally unrelated to anything they do in a really fun and engaging environment, to break down any barriers, make sure everyone was essentially level. There were no prima donnas, no more successful people than another, everyone was level. Or to put a situation where the people less successful actually had something to offer that made them the peers within the group on that day. And so for me, that's really important. And I think that it's a lot of companies, people just go to work, they're part of a group of people, and the company doesn't invest in focusing on building that team. They don't invest in incentivizing them. They don't stand up in front of the rest of the group once a week and say, well done to that person. They did well because everyone, please give that person a round of applause. He made a difference. She made a difference. And I think a lot of that has to happen for businesses to be more successful. And I think that companies sometimes forget that.
Yeah, no, company culture is so important, especially in this era of remote work. I feel, at Machine Lab, we're a remote team. And we're a small group, but there's a lot of that, what you said, like that can do attitude. And it's striking to me how contagious attitudes can be. So yeah, that really resonates with me. I just have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
That's okay. I have to ask you about your adventurousness, because I noticed that you do a lot of sports and athletics, and I noticed on the Make It Happen page, there's videos of you doing like, extreme sports or that kind of thing. So I want to know first of all, I want to know how you find the time. I want to know how you find the time to do all of the things that you do. But I also want to know how that kind of feeds into your leadership style, how that feeds into just, they're connected to me. And I kind of want to hear you talk a little bit about how that works for you, if that makes sense.
So I wake up at 4:30 every day. I go to the gym at 5 and I train till 6. So that's when I get my hour in the gym. Outside of that, I love to climb mountains. I find it's really good for my mental well-being to go climb mountains. And so I've climbed many now over the years. And I also like being in touch with nature. Every Saturday morning, I go hiking and climbing in Dubai, or outside of Dubai, but here in the country. I need to earth myself. I need to find nature. And even though we don't have as many opportunities to do that here in the country, I need that for my own well-being. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie as well. So I like to do things, whether that's wakeboarding or whether that's cycling or whatever that may be, I need to do it. I love to go out and try something new. I love jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. That buzz is something that I really addicted to. And I try and surround myself with like-minded people with those types of interests so that we can really enjoy that kind of stuff together. Because it's very easy to get into a very mundane way of life. We all have time where we're working late in the evening sometimes, or on a Sunday afternoon we might be working. You really have to be conscious about pursuing stuff that will make you happy. You know, I love to ski. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. If I could ski all day, every day, I would, you know. And my goal eventually is to live in a ski resort, just so that I can get up every day and do what I love. But yeah, for me, it's so much more than the calories you burn. It's the community, it's the risk, it's the adrenaline, and it's the peace. When I climb on a Saturday morning, you can't hear anything. It's really, really peaceful. And I love that. I love just being able to feel the breeze. Even in the summer in Dubai, when it's 50 degrees, I will be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, climbing at 4 o'clock in the morning, and making sure that I get that in and watch the sunrise, because it's just so beautiful. And I just think a lot of the time people don't take the time to get involved in that kind of stuff, and they get into this mundane repetition of go to work all week long, go for dinner Friday night, Saturday go to the shopping mall, go to the movies, or lay on the sofa. And it's like, to me, you're existing. You know, I'm 53 years old. I've probably got another 47 years in me. Well, I want to make sure that every single one of those years counts.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I need to ask you, what time do you sleep if you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning?
Sleep for 5 hours, and so 10:30 I go to the bedroom. 11:30 I'm asleep always, but 11 o'clock I'm usually asleep. Yeah.
My gosh. So you really put adventure, like all of this stuff before, you know, that is the most important thing to you, is constantly doing new things. And
I'm very I need it. You know, my performance in business is 25% better when I go to the gym than if I don't. It's literally it's that significant. And you know, people say to me, how do you get up so early in the morning? How do you do it? And again, if I had to do it on my own, I'd probably find excuses, but I pay for a trainer. I know the trainer will be there waiting for me when I get there in the morning. And I won't let him down. I will never let anybody down. If I'm going to be somewhere, I will never let anybody down. I'm British. And so if I say 5 o'clock, I'll be there 5 minutes to 5. Okay. And I one of my pet hates in life is people that are late and disrespect other people's time. I think it's enormously disrespectful. And I would never do that. You know, my wife we might be going for dinner with friends one evening, and it's a table at 8 o'clock, and I'll say to my wife, we need to leave at 7:30 to be there for 8 o'clock. And at 7:30 she won't be ready. And all I do, my stress levels rocket until we get in the car and we can drive there, because I hate being late, you know. And I have to send messages to friends or call friends and say, I'm really sorry, we're going to be 10 minutes late, you know. Oh, we understand, Spencer, and it's probably still getting ready and stuff like that.
I have to say that your passion is infectious, because I mean, I'm not an early riser at all, but I feel very like, I mean, I try to be active and work out, and I do feel much more energized, much more, you know, capable of tackling things after I've done, you know, something physical, connected with the earth and all of that. But even apart from that, you know, the lessons from team building, from, you know, your sales, you know, the rejection, all of that has been incredibly insightful. So thank you so much for this. It's been a blast, honestly. Like your enthusiasm is contagious. And I understand now why you are the most listened to podcast host, because I mean, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very kind, and thank you so much for inviting me to do this interview. I really appreciate it.